Hi, this is Sandra. Welcome back. So this is part 5, and what I'm going to do in this is select all the learners from the database and just print them out into the console window. And then in the next part I will put all those learners into a JTable, onto a form or onto a frame. So I'm just going to add a button here, and this will be programmed probably in the next part, but I'm going to use it for testing out my code for the minute. So if I just right click here to edit text, so this will be select all learners or get all learners, or I might change that at a later stage, but we'll have that for the minute. Now you might want, if you want to change the font on that or whatever, you can do that, and always then right click and change variable name. So btn for any buttons, select all learners, and OK. Now, next I'm going to go to the LearnerDAO classes. That's where I put any code that I want to connect to the database, or connect to the database, select, insert into the database. So it's where all my database code goes. So I'm going to make this method public so that I can call it from behind the GUI. It's going to return an array list. So I'm just use control space there. So an array list, and then the angle brackets are generics to say what type will be in that array list. And I'm going to put in learner objects in the array list. Now I'm using control space for that as well to make sure that I get the import, because the learner class is in the model package and I am in the controller package right now. So it's going to return an array list containing learner objects, and then to give it a name, get all learners, or select all learners, whichever you want. Get all learners. And it's not going to take in any parameters. And then curly brackets for our method. Yeah, so what do I need first here? Firstly, I'm going to declare an empty array list just to hold all the learner objects that will be populated now in a minute. So array list, using the angle brackets, containing learner objects. So that's going to be my list of learners. List new array list, and empty angle brackets and empty constructor call there as well. Now, next one I'm going to use is a prepared statement. So prepared statement is a precompiled SQL statement that will be used to execute against the database. So prepared statement, I'm going to call that select statement. stmt equals, and this is one of the easiest statements to write up, so I don't even need to test it or anything against my database once I spell everything right. Select star from, I am going to go to the database though for a second. I would advise this, just check the name of the table, so it's called learner. Now I'm going to right click on that and go to script table as, select to a new query window. What that will do is it'll just give me a script or an SQL statement to select everything from that learner table, just so I can see that, see the contents, there we go, just so I can see the contents of, make sure there's something in the table that I can select from. So it is called learners, the name of the table. Learners is the database, but singular there is the table. So select star from learner. Now, okay, so that cannot be converted to a prepared statement. Oh, apologies, a little bit of code missing here. I'll just do this in 2 lines. I'm just going to put in a string for the SQL equals that, and then the prepared statement. You can't instantiate it using the constructor because there isn't one available. But what you need to do is use the connection object, which I have globally, an SQL connection, and it has a prepare statement method. And in it, you can pass it into it double quotes, which are select star from learner, or I have it there on the previous line just to make my code more readable. Now, we'll hover over there now. There's a chance that it won't be able to create that prepared statement for us. Can't connect to the database for whatever reason, so that needs to be surrounded in a try catch. Now here we go. This is database code. I could put a try catch around it, and then in my catch I could, give a message to the user, but I don't know if the message needs to be displayed in the console window, if it needs to be in a JOption pane, the dialog that opens up. Does it need to go to the log file? I can't make that decision here. So the purpose of this code is that it could be called from a GUI, it could be called from maybe a kind of a textual application or he runs in the console. It could be called maybe an Android application. So I don't know how this could be called. So I'm not going to put a try-catch around the code, but the other alternative is in here, in the method declaration between the parameter list and the curly brackets, you can say that this method might throw an SQL exception. So it might throw an SQL exception. Now it's up to the calling code when it calls this method, and it's a checked exception. It's up to the calling code to deal with that. So it might display it in a JOption pane, or oh sorry, that was a NetBeans that made a loud noise. It might display it in a JOption pane, or you can decide then what you want to do from the calling code. Now, next thing I need to do, I need to execute that query that I have here, that prepared statement. So I'm going to type this in select statement dot execute, and there's an execute query here, and it returns a result set. A result set is like a table. Just flick back here to SQL Server. A result set basically is that. It's what's there, that table of information that will come back, that's stored in result set, and then you need to scroll through that. So to execute query, at the beginning of this line, I need to declare a result set. Control space, I need it twice there, result set, and I just call it RS. It's easier to type because I keep making mistakes. Now, so what I need to do next is to loop through that result set. So that's a while statement. So while and rs.next. That method will return true if there is a record to read, if there is a next record to read. And when there isn't one to read, if it's at the bottom of the table, that result set, it'll return false. Okay, sorry, I was typing something there, a little change plan. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read from that result set. I'm going to flick across back to the database there for a second. So I will be getting the ID, I will be getting the name, getting the address, and getting the age. I'm going to store those in 4 separate variables, and then I'm going to create a learner object out of those 4 pieces of information. And finally, I'm going to add that into the array list. So I have to get the ID, name, address, and age. So back we go again here. So on the result set, RS, there's all these get methods. The first one is get int. Now, in here, you can specify the column index. I think 0 is the first one, or the string. 1 could be the first one, but it's better off to use the name because it makes your code easier to read. So that gets an int, so that's going to be int ID equals, from the result set, get the int, that's the first column there, it's the ID column. So I'm going to repeat that there 3 times for the name equals rs.getString, and that is name. And the same then for string address equals rs.getString address, and one more, the age at the end, and that's another int. So int age equals rs.get int, and the column name is age. Now, what I'm going to do with those 4 pieces of information is I'm going to create a learner object from them. So learner equals new learner. Equals new learner, and the constructor, I have 2 constructors, so I have one that takes all 4, so I'm going to call that there. Now, because my parameters in my constructor is the same name as the variables I've declared here, it kind of fills it all in for you. But now I have a learner object created, and the last thing I'm going to do, or 2 more things I need to do, maybe 3. I'm going to add to my list of learners there on line 67, list of learners dot add. So as it's looping, it'll create a learner object from each row that comes back from the database, and it adds that object into the array list. And then before the method finishes, it's going to return that list of learners. And that will make that compile. It wasn't compiling before that because I had a return type and nothing returned. Now there's one last thing I want to do. Inside the while loop, I'm going to do a printout of each learner. So each learner as it's looping, just so I can see if this actually works or not. So it's just a little test. So learner, that will call the implicitly call the toString method for each learner, and that'll print out their ID, name, address, and age. Now, and again, there's one last thing I need to do. I need to call this method from my Graphical User Interface because I have a button on that just to test it out. So back I go to the learner frame. I have a button here. I double click on that. That'll take me to the code there behind it. I have a global, I called it LearnerDAO. I have a global reference to the LearnerDAO dot, and I call the method getAllLearners. Get all learners. That will return an array list. I'm not doing anything with that for the minute, so I'm ignoring the return type, and that will print out each learner there because I have a printout. Now, because I put in the DAO class that it might throw an SQL exception, it's here that I need to tell the learner that something has gone wrong. So now I can hover over that, hit Alt and Enter. Go again, hover over, hit Alt and Enter. So I'm going to try catch, yes please. And now I decide how I want to inform the user that something's gone wrong. A log file, print in the console window, or show a message dialog. So I'm going to the J option pane, show message dialog. This, I'm just undoing that. I prefer the more verbose message dialog here. So root pane, this is the parent component. What is the message error? Selecting from the database. What's the title on it? We'll just go with an error. And then finally the message type. So in the J option pane class dot, we'll go with an error message because it's exactly what it is. And just move this around. I need a semicolon on the end of the line. Okay, we're good now to test it out. So save that. Hit the run button. Main class, that's fine. Now just give that a second there to run. Okay, so now select all learners. That's going to the DAO class. It'll execute the code from the database, and all going well. You see down here, it'll print out each learner from the database. Okay, so that's correct. So in my next video, I'm going to take that information, and I can leave it printed out there. That doesn't matter. That's just for testing purposes to show you that it worked. I'm going to have this information, Sandra, Ireland, and so on. I'm going to have that information going into a J table, which will be displayed on another frame. And then on my design here, that will open up another frame and show all the information displayed on a table. Okay, thank you.